is Dean Thompson, and welcome to another Escape to Gaming. Today I've got another guilty pleasure that I kind of touched on briefly in my rant on guilty pleasures, but I wanted to really take the time and do it justice. I would not be reviewing today if it wasn't for this game and the friend I met through this game. Back in 2011, they came out with a game called Juarez The Cartel. Now this is a game that's been loved and hated by many of the franchise as well as many other FPS fanatics like myself. Now, many people aren't real thrilled about change, and that's kind of one of the big dynamics I think that sunk this game. Frankly, even Black Ops 1, one of the reasons why I was so attracted to it was because it kind of took place in Vietnam. You just don't see games, especially on the newer consoles, that deal with the Vietnam War. Now, back on the regular Xbox, there was Shell Shock and many other really cool Vietnam games, and on the PS2 as well, but very few for the on the next-gen systems. This was one of the reasons why I loved, and I thought Black Ops 1 was so cool because it really went back to the beginning of Black Ops and the Vietnam War and all that. So I wasn't real thrilled, frankly, with the direction that Black Ops 2 went in, although I love the production values. It's extremely polished. I love Trent Reznor's music in it. And I think the characters and voices and the action is incredible in Black Ops 2. But I still like the first one better. Well, that's how many people feel about Call of Juarez. They really liked it better when they left it alone with the Old West, and they deviated substantially from that by bringing in this new era of the modern cowboy, which, you know, law enforcement in the urban setting today. So in Cartel, similar to Bound in Blood, where you could play as one of the two brothers, and each brother had their own attributes. One was more agile, could climb rooftops and trees and water towers, and was better with a sniper rifle. And then the other brother was more of a front door, kick open the front door, six-shooter type. Well, they kind of took that same gameplay mechanic and expanded on it in Call of Juarez The Cartel. So you get three really dynamic, cool, kind of anti-hero, somewhat likable, somewhat unlikable heroes in this game. And I like films and games that actually have this dynamic. Many people love a clear-cut hero. These people, you don't know whether they're good or bad. They all have a monkey on their back, something that's eating at them, which is kind of forcing them in their own minds to be a bad cop or to try to think for themselves at the end of the day. But I like the complex nature and sophisticated conflict that kind of was portrayed in this game. None of these the three people in this game, and you got Ben McCall, he's an ancestor from the original Bound in Blood game, and you've got Kim Evans as a black FBI agent who does a great job in her role within the game, and then there's Eddie Guerrero, who's a DEA agent, and they all are on this task force to deal with these drug cartels, and they're trying to stem the violence at the border before it kind of works its way up into Los Angeles and all over America. So there's some interesting aspects of the game which in and of themselves are actually quite controversial. Now what makes Cartel so interesting is that you can play as these three different characters, and each one kind of has their own version of how the story plays out. Now everyone can use sniper rifles and handguns and SMGs and all that throughout the game, but each character has their own attributes that they really have the real finesse with each of these weapons. So, you know, the Ben McCall, the white kind of an urban cowboy, real tough LA cop, scars on his face, kind of a rough and tough hoarse voice to him, and he's pretty much is a six-shooter dude and with handguns. So he's got the unstoppable power with the handguns. His zooming ability, handguns in each hand going off. I mean, he's really is a cool character to play at if you like a good variety of handguns and you want to see him just really flourish with them. Kim Evans is more of a sniper rifle expert and with assault rifles. And so her ability with zooming is actually a little bit better. These are things I didn't really notice at first until I played through the whole game and then realized you could play as any of the three characters. I didn't even know through the first playthrough that you could do this, which I thought was really cool. So Kim has her abilities with, you know, a more steady aim with zooming the sniper rifles or assault weapons. You've got Eddie, which is a master. I mean, he's really probably of the three my favorite character. He has, you know, twin Uzis, you know, marching down the street with the Uzis, you know, chugging away, firing off, kicking indoors. It goes right into the slow motion mechanic, and it's really epic as he just rips and tears through the environment and the enemies with his SMG. So again, he has more stopping power, a little bit better aiming. So each of them have their own attributes, which kind of makes it fun to play. So within this concentration mode, with the meter that you build up, and once you can go into it, it's really cool. It slows down time, very similar to the Max Payne mechanics that many of us are quite familiar with. And you can kind of, pick out the headshots a little bit easier. You can, really maximize your favorite weapon in taking these people out, whether it's a shotgun or a SMG or whatever. It's really, really cool. You can use one hand, a handgun or machine gun in both hands as you kick open a door. It's really cool. It's epic that way. And then there's also some really interesting things that each of the characters says when they're actually in this mode, which is just very unique, very strange. At first I thought it was a little odd, but I actually liked it, and I get a big smile on my face every time I kind of hear these little rants as they're taking out their enemies.
Who the fuck are you, ese? Chinga tu madre! Shoot him! Check it. Ready to roll? I will make mine arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, and I will bathe in the blood of my motherfucking enemies.
So the story can play out differently. Some of the levels are pretty much the same. There's some where one person will be up sniping from an elevated position while the other two are down kind of right basically in the heart of the battle. And that's what I liked about the game, is it kind of broke up the gameplay. There'll be some really cool on-rail driving scenes. Some of them you're driving and you're just trying to get the hell out of there. You don't know where to go exactly. You just hit a roadblock and you just try to get around any way you can. You're just missing trains, trying to find the freeway on-ramp. It's just really neat the way that they have this kind of a high-energy, adrenaline-pumping driving scenes. Some of them you're driving, others your partners are driving, and you're leaning out over the roof or hanging out the side window and taking them out with machine guns and rocket launchers and handguns, whatever you can have, and it's epic. Meanwhile, they're shooting back at you, and it really is some interesting dynamics. So when you're driving, it's cool. Some of them you're just trying to get out of the worst parts of LA. There's roadblocks, you're surrounded, they're coming in behind you, down alleys, they're blocking your path. You've got to quickly shoot down another kind of perpendicular alleys to get the hell out of there. And you can just spray the roadblocks, watching the cars epically blow up or slow down time with your concentration meter if it's built up. Go for those headshots. It's just really over the top. It's very well portrayed. And it's just action-packed. These are the kind of things that I love in a lot of my favorite movies that you just don't see anymore. And I think that the game does a very good job of this. There's others just hauling ass down an LA freeway, and they're in front of you and coming up on-ramps behind you, and it's very challenging. And you can get killed real easy if you don't swerve, if you're driving. Some of them, your partners are driving, you just have to make every shot count. And if you're able to build up that concentration meter within those driving scenes, that's even more epic, as you can slow down, zoom in a little bit better, and just watch the cars explode. I go through taking out the tires or shooting out the engine, and it just has a lot of just explosive action, high-octane driving scenes, which really make the game cool. You got other really cool scenes later in the game where it's just some killer helicopters that are coming after you, so you got to get enemies on the ground, there's helicopters above, and you just get really overwhelmed. You have to really pick your weapons carefully. So sometimes you can choose. You can use an M60 machine gun or a rocket launcher, work at the helicopters. Sometimes it's tricky to aim at them. Meanwhile, you're getting hit. It has a rechargeable health system, which we see in many of these FPS games. This game does it pretty well, and you get hit, it takes your health down quick, so you really have to lie low, and it kind of takes a little while for your health to come back, so it kind of forces you to keep your head down and kind of proceed cautiously. If you really go in with a run-and-gun attitude, you won't last too long in Cartel. Now, the game has some interesting graphics. It's made by Techland that did Dead Island. It has virtually identical graphics that were used because they use a Chrome engine in this. And they experiment with kind of an over-exaggerated depth of focus. Now, some people didn't like this element. I actually do. I think it looks good. And the game engine works real well at portraying really good lighting effects and this depth of focus. But sometimes there's some glitches in the game. Very similar to Dead Island. In fact, I noticed some of the same kinds of glitches and issues in Dead Island that they had in this Call of Juarez The Cartel. So, again, it doesn't make it a bad game. It doesn't take you out of the experience. It's just things that you'll notice. And today, we just so many graphic horrors that you got to have the best graphics. Everything's going to be perfect. But I mean, I've even noticed glitches in Max Payne 3, and a lot of other people too. And, and even Black Ops and things like that. I mean, all games are going to have some glitches. Some show a little bit more than others. This game, I think, has really good graphics. And the facial animations are a little stiff at times, and sometimes the way that people walk. But I thought the voice acting was actually pretty good. And I like the banter between these characters.
Listen, maybe it's time we found out who sold us out to the cartel. Yeah, and how the hell do you propose we do that? We tell Dixon about the meeting.
Dixon?
You think she's dirty? She's a politician, but even she's not that slimy. It could be someone close to her, though.
You can't be serious.
If the leak's in her office, we'll know.
You're just hoping they'll send Alvarez. That's it, isn't it? You just can't let it go. What the hell did he do to you in Nam?
It's not about what he did to me.
No, it's about what he did to her.
So the game takes you through some really cool locales. You start off in the streets of Los Angeles, and there's people that you meet there that are integral with the story. You kind of work your way up into the Sierras, where there's these pot farms that you've got to infiltrate and burn their stash and blame it on another drug gang, so that you can kind of get to the bottom of what's really going on. So it has some really interesting plot twists in it. Some of them you really don't see coming. I actually give them some real kudos on the story for the way the story is done. You take three interesting characters, all of them likable and unlikable at the same time. And I actually find that can be a strength in some characters. Some people don't like, they want a clear-cut hero. This game, you're not really sure who's good, who's bad. You're not sure who to side with, who not. And that's what makes it really interesting to play as all three of these characters, because the story will unfold differently for each. They all will have these hidden agendas and submissions that they have to do. So while they're all on the same team and they're trying to get this job done, interestingly enough, all for their own reasons. Some of them have a brother that they're protecting. Some of them, they got a monkey in their back with, gambling debts they're trying to pay off. And, there's other ones that they all pretty much have their own reasons. And that's what I thought was kind of unique about the game. So what you have to do is, not only are you doing the main missions and all the FPS work and shooting and kind of a linear progression through the game, but when your partners aren't looking, which is quite tricky at times, you'll see, bundles of, weed laying around, or, drugs, or cash. And if they're not looking, you snake this stuff, and then you have it. And if they catch you, there's a little scene that shows that they've caught you red-handed, and you won't get the credits for what you found. And that means they're going to be watching a lot more closely after that. So, which I really like, these little kind of side aspects to the game. Now, once you uncover this contraband that you're sneaking and picking up for your own reasons, as each of the three characters have their own motives for grabbing all this loot as much as they can to line their pockets, these things will unlock the guns. So it really behooves you to try to take the time and find these collectibles and do these little side missions, because believe me, you're going to want the guns. And that's one thing Cartel is really good at, is guns. It's just tons of SMGs, wonderful array of handguns. I mean, every type of shotgun imaginable, and some really heavy-duty machine guns and things that will come later in the game. So some of these things you'll unlock as you progress through the game, but the bulk of them you unlock by doing these side contraband little mini missions, which I think is quite unique. So the game really offers a lot that you just don't see in any other FPS game. So in Juarez The Cartel, you're in LA, you're up in the Sierras where it's beautiful up there, and beautiful mountain areas and streams and what have you. Then you work your way down to the Mexican border, and some of these kind of little Mexican ghost towns on the border. One of them's like on the rim of this mesa. It looks like the Grand Canyon, like an old West town, and it's the one level that kind of returns to the old West roots of the Call of Juarez game, which I thought was really well portrayed. Just kind of an epic classic, Mexican standoff and shootouts, really cool. There's some other scenes where you're kind of out in the middle of the desert, in a trailer, and you're just surrounded by Suburbans and pickups and black helicopters coming after you, and it's almost impossible to get out of those levels. You really are overwhelmed. So while you're in the kind of the heat of the battle, you have one of your other partners, which you'll play as later when you replay the game, and he may be up above with a sniper rifle helping you as you're in your own scenario, which is really cool. And then there's even a really neat level where there's a hidden tunnel that goes under the Mexican border into this big Mexican ranch where they have these just enormous black arms dealers, which is chock full of weapons. So there's some great shootouts out in the desert, down in these tunnels, coming up onto this farm on the other side of Mexico. These cars and trucks will pile in with mounted machine guns on them. There's just so many ways to take out the enemy. It's a fairly linear game, but it gives you options of how you can take the game out. Lots of grenade usage, which I really love. Lots of explosives everywhere. I mean, everything is a destructible kind of an environment. In areas, you get brothels that you go through. Some of them are in Los Angeles. There's really cool clubs, like disco clubs, in some of the downtown parts of LA. It has a wide range of environments, and I think it really did a good job of capturing this kind of a sleazy world of Los Angeles and the drug cartels and a lot of the characters that are underneath that. So I don't want to give away the plot or anything like that with the game, but there's some really neat levels later on where the boss battles are just, overwhelming. There's just like a giant, kind of a Scarface type mansion that you have to infiltrate. It's racked with Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Hummers and a million guards, and it's just to infiltrate that from the grounds and then eventually into the inside of it is really well portrayed and very well done. Very exciting. And then there's a really kind of a surprise, which I never saw coming. 3 different endings. You can actually change the ending, and each character has their own ending. So there's like multiple ways that you can play the game and wrap the story up. And you're not really sure, even to the very end of the game, as to whether, which direction that you really should go with. And I kind of like that about the game. The game is very unique. This is a day and age where there's just so many modern shooters and World War II shooters, and I love all of these things. And, I love the Uncharted series and the Max Payne series especially, but it's just kind of nice to see more of an urban setting. That's one of the things I actually liked about Max Payne 3 is you get these great urban shootouts and office buildings and bars and things like that, and that's what they do really well in Cartel from a first-person shooter capacity. It has some very smooth first-person shooting driving scenes, gameplay, great sniping sessions, and like I said, I mean, you're down in parking garages, up on rooftops, in a wide variety of hangouts in Los Angeles, and it just really did a good job of nailing down the feeling of being a drug enforcement agent or these tough LA cops. It's just a crappy job. No one really is a hero at the end of the day, and that was portrayed very, very well in Call of Juarez The Cartel. I would say that Cartel is one of my top 5 favorite shooters of all time. And I know it's a bold statement. I play a tremendous amount of shooters and have since the very beginning of Duke Nukem and Doom. But it's so well done and it's so unique. It's a shame that it's gotten such bad reviews. I don't think they're going to make a sequel to it, unfortunately, but I'm just happy it's here. Now, the game you can pick up, it's kind of hard to find. I actually bought it for a friend of mine, and he's loving it too. He's digging it as well. And I think it's about half of what it was brand new. You get like, $29 or something like that. So the price has dropped to where it's affordable to get. It's kind of hard to find, which tells me that people actually are hanging on to the game. Now, I had 2 friends that came over and actually saw me playing it and loved the game, and they both went out and got it. One was my brother-in-law. He loves it. My nephew comes over. He'll stay 7, 8 hours straight and play it. I have a friend in Florida, the one that actually turned me on to a positive review early on, my friend Russ, and him and I have played it, over 3,000 miles away in co-op and have had a blast. It's a really cool co-op component. You've got a gangsters versus cops multiplayer component, which I haven't tried. And I'm sure the multiplayer has pretty much died out by now on it, but the co-op is quite fun. I think it's like a 2 to 3 player co-op. Very cool, so you can play as those 3 characters. And I've had a blast with the co-op. It's one of the only games I've actually enjoyed playing in co-op. So the game really boasts some amazing shootouts, action scenes, and a very interesting story that I've never seen, frankly, in any type of video game before. So I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss Call of Juarez The Cartel. If you think you like the review, if it's something that you kind of, you like my rationale for why I like the game, I wouldn't hesitate to pick it up. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's a very interesting game, an interesting premise, and it's got a solid FPS gameplay. It has some really good slow motion Max Payne 3 segments in it. Action-packed, lots of explosions, just epic shootouts with Uzis and M4s, and it's just, this game does it right with guns. If you love guns, you'll love this game. If you love these kind of tough, gritty cop, drug enforcement agent movies, you certainly would like this game. So pick it up if you can find it. Look for a clean copy of it. I think you'll really have a good time with it. And also get Bound in Blood too. It's another really good game. It's actually got a lot better scores than this one. It has a lot of the same mechanics, just a little bit different. So thanks for watching the review. I hope you found it helpful. And I love to find these, guilty pleasures, and Juarez The Cartel certainly is one of them. So thanks again for watching, and enjoy your games, guys.